All right, so we are Putney Central School. We have Helen, our Food Connects coordinator, Carrie Harlow, our cook, Karen, one of the fifth grade teachers, and Alice, who is the chair of the school board. And I'm a parent, and I do some work with the kids in the classrooms and in the garden. And I'm going to have to refer to notes because I was the latest one here today, so I got volunteered to talk. And don't let your kids buy your glasses for you, by the way. So overall, I guess what I'd like to say is that for our whole thing, this was like it still is, the storm before the calm. It's kind of reverse. Everything is so chaotic, there's so much going on that it doesn't feel like we're ever going to get there. But we're slowly seeing pieces fall together. I think what I'm going to do, what might make the most sense, is to start first with some of the cafeteria kind of initiatives or whatever that we've been working on. And the first one being breakfast. And there's lots of ways of doing breakfast. You try to get kids to have breakfast in the morning, et cetera. However, we found that a lot of them miss it and it interferes with classes. So we've switched it around so that the kids eat breakfast actually after school has started. So at what time?
8:15.
So about 8:15, the breakfasts are brought right to their classrooms on carts. And this way, we've increased it now to over 100? Over
172 kids.
172 kids, over 100 kids are eating breakfast.
And last year, about 20.
About 20, okay? So it's made a huge improvement. Now there's a lot of logistics to work out, considering working with K through 8th grade and dealing with the teachers and their schedules and stuff like that. And a lot of people were resistant at first, but over time, as you start getting into the swing of things, things work out pretty well. And I believe that's where we're at now, right? Things are working out well. And we with some minor adjustments for the following year. And let's see. One other thing and I actually explained this a bit more for me, the professional development of kitchen staff, trying to figure out how to kind of coordinate all this stuff, and this is dealing with waste, is that correct? Mm-hmm. One of the big things is dealing with the amount of waste that we end up having. Because of these breakfasts, some kids order them, they don't always eat everything, and a lot of stuff gets thrown out. So there's a lot of, we have a lot more work to do, put it that way, to kind of figure out how to ameliorate some of these problems. And hoping to get some of the kids involved in it too, especially as and this is where some of Act 148 might fall into this, especially getting the kids to help out with a lot of the coordination of recycling, composting, and things like that. But we can make it an educational process, which is what we hope to do. Let's see, and if there's anything I'm forgetting in here, just chime in. Let's see, where are we at right now? This kind of ties some of it together, and this goes along with some of the things that some of the other folks have said, but we've really demonstrated that when the kids start the seeds, grow them, and harvest them, they'll eat them, okay? Take the famous Brussels sprout, who likes Brussels sprouts? Usually, yes, of course. But you ask kids, nah, they don't want them. These are a bunch of 5th grade kids who went through the whole process. They harvested them. Before, all it takes is one 5th grader to go, hey, can I eat one of these right now? And I say, sure. And pretty soon they're all eating them raw. And then they'll go into the cafeteria. Out of all the classes, 98% of the 5th graders ate all the Brussels sprouts. None of the other kids did because they didn't participate in the process. So it's this realization, which I think we've always had, but it was actually demonstrated here, that when you really get the kids fully participating in the entire process, it was the same with the potatoes that we harvested and everything like that. And they get to take them right to Carrie into the cafeteria, and she can make them up, and they see them right on their plate, okay? It's kind of a no-brainer, so to speak, because they're totally invested in the process. And let me see. Why don't we go to the next slide. This is, some of you also talked about, getting some of the challenges around getting the garden beds together and everything, and we had the same thing. We ended up moving a bunch of garden beds out of the garden. They previously had been in the garden, And you can see them up front. Each class gets a bed, K through 5. And we have a little square foot garden maker, so each kid knows exactly where they're planting. They can plant whatever they want. It's all on them, okay? That way they feel real, what's the word I'm looking? Yeah, thank you. True ownership of what they do. And also on that, we explain sometimes, don't plant things too close together, particularly for the younger kids. They don't really get it. But as soon as their stuff comes up and they see, 6,000 carrots coming up in the little square foot, they start to get it. But you let them do it. You let them do those things, and then they get it. And then they figure out, what to do next. They'll think about it more next year. In the background, we have what we call our production area, and that's where it's a little bit more middle school that's involved in some of that, or in the upper grades, I should say. Because it's a little more challenging in some senses, but that's where we put our longer term things in, like, at this point, just potatoes and our storage crops, and then also the very early spring things like peas. And we've kind of delayed, and I wish I could say it's totally on purpose, but it's not, but we've kind of delayed some of our planting so that there's a lot more to harvest in the fall, rather than having everything ready in the first part of August and ready to go. This way we're trying to get the kids involved into more. They've been planting trays of seedlings right before the end of school that will go in to the ground with some summer camp kids. We're having 2 summer camps this summer to help kind of keep things going on in the garden, so that it doesn't fall all on 1 or 2 people or 1 or 2 families. Jump in.
You guys have a little less than 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Gee, that goes fast.
We could go for hours.
Yeah. We could. I mean, there's so much involved. What are some main
So
points that you'd like to
one
hit?
of the main things we've been talking about for years, and now we're trying to actually realize for this coming fall, is universal meals. And so in fact, right here, while I was listening, I was having to send emails to Lori about getting us up and going for universal meals, because we think we're probably at 55, 60 directly certified, but really right now, we might be only 39 to 41. So we're really working, it's not that, that's the way we look. What our reality is different from what we look like. So that's been a challenge. That's actually something that takes a lot of time, my time as a school board member, but Carrie's time and the office manager. So that's one of the things we really want to realize, because to fully realize our program, and we know we have like a 5-year process here, if not longer, but we really feel like the kids all need to be offered free, healthy, local food. So that's one of the things.
Right, and I was going to say, and that kind of goes along a bit with exploring, we're exploring the possibility of going independent. And a lot of that is some of it being driven by the community and community, caring about its own community and where the food comes. But additionally, some of it being driven by the students. And this was one that kind of hit us from left field. And just to give you one example, and particularly it works well after the meat folks who are up here, what do you do with 7th and 8th graders, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in our middle school who have been studying these units, whether it's migrant worker stuff or whatever, and all of a sudden they say, is our meat humanely raised? Are our chickens pastured? And they go, well, I'm not going to eat it if I don't know for sure that they are. So now what do you do? I mean, most of the food coming in, you can't guarantee where it comes from. So do you stomp on what their ideals that they're creating and learning in their classes, or do you follow the children and figure out how can we solve this problem? And so that's part of the reason we're exploring how can we become independent, where we can use a local beef farmer, for example, who lives 2 miles down the road, the kids can see it. They could raise whatever beef they need to, and you have the cost issues, but a farmer might be willing to sell it to you on the hoof. You get it to the butcher yourself and take care of it. You can cut your middleman prices down. So there's all these things to figure out, but the more you educate your kids and the more you help them become critical thinkers, the more a challenge it makes for yourself, which is a good thing. It really is. So
we have about a minute for questions from the audience. Questions or comments?
I have a question. How did you deal with the lack of, with having a breakfast in the classroom? how did you deal with, like, I'm assuming you had some teacher negative feedback, or?
Oh, no,
No,
they're-
it was all positive.
It was perfect.
Most of it was very positive.
Most of
Most
it
of it was
was.
very positive. There were a few that were a little hesitant.
Can you step up to the
Okay,
mic?
sorry. There were a few that were a little hesitant, but after we started the program and it got rolling and rolling smoothly, I have the carts ready every day by around 8 o'clock. Some of the teachers have retrieving the cart as a job and for their students, and they come and get the cart. Some of them who don't choose to do that, I deliver it, and most of them will eat their breakfast during morning meeting, or they switched their story time, the younger grades around, so that they read to them thing in the morning and have their breakfast then. So it really worked out. I was very lucky. The staff was great.
Well, I think one other thing that they did, that Putney did really well this year, was they worked hard to get engagement from and buy-in from all the staff and offered lots of opportunities for feedback. They did a formal survey probably a month or 2 months after they started Breakfast After the Bell, and that's when teachers really were able to write down some of their comments and some of the logistical challenges, and then they were addressed. So just remembering to offer that opportunity for feedback was really successful for them.
Let's give them a big round of applause.